Victor stood at the front of the boardroom with a confidence I had seen before. The kind that fills a room before a person even speaks. My concept will redefine this account, he said, clicking to the next slide with practiced ease. I sat 3 seats down the table, my notebook open, my pen still. The leather portfolio in front of me contained 6 weeks of work. Late nights. Weekend sessions. 3 complete revisions of the predictive model. Slide 12 appeared on the screen. My framework. My exact words. My predictive model that I had built from absolute scratch, testing every variable twice. The client team leaned forward in their chairs. Their faces showed the exact reaction I had hoped for when I first designed it. Interest. Real interest. The kind that means they see value. I opened my mouth to speak. Victor smiled in my direction, cutting me off before I could form a single word. Let's not confuse the client with technical noise, he said smoothly. Polite laughter came from someone across the table. My chest tightened. I kept my face completely still and closed my mouth. Then the client's CEO, a woman named Miss Pauline Adeyemi, leaned forward and asked the question that changed everything. Who built a predictive engine behind this framework? Victor hesitated. Just half a second. But I saw it clearly. And in that brief silence, I realized something that made my stomach drop. He did not actually understand what he had stolen. My team supported the implementation, Victor said, recovering with the smoothness of someone who had done this before. Supported. The word hung in the air like smoke from a candle just blown out. Ms. Adeyemi's eyes moved to me for just a moment. I felt the weight of her attention settle on my face. Her expression shifted slightly. She was evaluating something. I said nothing. I kept my hands folded on top of my closed notebook. Victor sensed the shift in the room's energy. He wrapped up the meeting faster than planned, thanking everyone for their time and promising detailed follow-up documentation by the end of the week. His voice carried confidence, but his movements were quicker than usual. The client team stood and began gathering their materials. Laptops closed. Notebooks stacked. I was putting my notebook into my bag when Miss Adeyemi approached me directly. Not Victor. Me. She extended her hand with deliberate purpose. I don't think we've been formally introduced. Pauline Adeyemi, CEO. Amora Okafor, I said, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm. Do you have a business card, Amora? I may have some technical follow-up questions about the framework. The predictive modeling piece is particularly interesting to our team. I pulled a card from my portfolio and handed it to her. She glanced at it, then looked at me steadily for just a moment longer than necessary. Something passed across her face. Recognition, maybe. Or confirmation of something she had already suspected during the presentation. Thank you, she said quietly. I'll be in touch. She walked away to rejoin her team. Victor caught me in the hallway 30 seconds later, his hand light on my elbow. You looked unhappy in there, he said quietly. I had not said a single word during the entire meeting. Not one. I'm fine, I said, pulling my arm back gently. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to something that sounded like concern but felt like a warning wrapped in silk. Good. Because we need to stay aligned on messaging. The client needs to see leadership unity. They need to trust that we speak with one voice. Leadership unity. I nodded once, keeping my expression neutral. Then he said something that made this deeply personal. You're not ready for executive credit yet, Amora. Leadership is about presence. Not just intelligence. It's about knowing when to step forward and when to support the broader vision. I stood there in the hallway and let his words settle over me like cold water. It sounded like mentorship. Like someone older and wiser offering guidance to help me grow into bigger roles. But it felt like something else entirely. Manipulation. This was not simple theft. People stole ideas in corporate environments all the time. I understood that reality. I had seen it happen to others. This was different. This was positioning. Deliberate. Calculated. Strategic. Victor was not just taking credit for my work. He was rewriting the entire narrative so thoroughly that my actual contribution became invisible. So that if I ever tried to speak up, I would look like someone confused about their own role. Someone who did not understand how collaboration worked. I appreciate the feedback, I said calmly, meeting his eyes. He smiled, visibly relieved. I knew you'd understand. You're smart, Amara. That's exactly why I value you on the team. We need people like you. He walked away toward his office, his steps confident. I stood in that hallway for 10 seconds. Maybe 15. The sound of his footsteps fading. Then I went back to my desk, opened my laptop, and did something I had never done before in my entire career. I created a folder on my personal drive. I labeled it one word. Evidence. That night, at 9:43 p.m., I received an email that proved he knew he had been caught. The email came through while I was sitting on my couch with a cup of tea going cold in my hand. My apartment was quiet. Just the hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic outside my window. Subject line: Clarification on Data Architecture. From Miss Pauline Adeyemi, COO. Victor was not copied. I opened it immediately, my heart rate picking up. The message was short and precise. She asked 3 specific technical questions about the predictive model. How the algorithm weighted historical data against real-time inputs. What variables drove the forecasting accuracy rates we had shown. How the system adapted to sudden market shifts in real time. These were not questions someone asks when they want general insight or surface-level understanding. These were questions someone asks when they are verifying authorship. I stared at my screen, reading each question twice. If I answered honestly, with the technical depth these questions required, I would expose Victor completely. There would be no way for him to claim he understood this work at any meaningful level. If I stayed silent or gave vague responses, I would erase my own contribution. I would become exactly what Victor had described in that hallway: support, not leadership. A smart person who did not understand presence. I read the questions a third time. My tea had gone cold. I set the cup down on the side table. Then I opened a new reply and made a decision that I knew would change everything that came after. I answered every question with complete technical clarity. I attached documentation. Timestamps from the original model files showing development dates. Screenshots of my testing process across 3 different data sets. Clean data showing each development phase with my name in the metadata. No emotional language. No accusations. Just facts presented clearly. I hit send at 10:17 p.m. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed on the couch beside me. A reply from Miss Adeyemi. Thank you, Amara. This confirms our suspicion. I read that word 3 times, my chest tight. Suspicion. Not answers our questions. Not clarifies the approach. Not helps us understand. Suspicion. They were not impressed by the presentation. They were investigating it. I set my phone down carefully on the coffee table and sat back against the couch cushions. My tea had gone completely cold. I did not drink it. I sat there in my apartment, in the quiet, and understood that something much larger than I had realized was already in motion. The client had not been confused during that meeting. They had been testing him. And he had failed the test completely. 2 days later, Ms. Adeyemi called my direct office line and said something I did not expect. She wanted to speak privately. Off the record. The call came through at 2:30 p.m. on a Thursday. I closed my office door before answering, my hand shaking slightly. Miss Adeyemi, I said, keeping my voice steady. Amora. Thank you for taking this. Her voice was calm but direct. No small talk. I'll be plain with you. We tested Victor during that presentation. My stomach dropped. We've worked with enough consultants over the years to recognize when someone is presenting work they don't fully understand. The questions I asked were designed specifically to see if he could answer them at a technical level. He couldn't. I said nothing. I barely breathed. Your email confirmed what we suspected. The framework is yours. The thinking is yours. The technical execution is yours. She paused, and I heard papers rustling on her end. We have implementation questions that require real technical expertise. Victor can't provide that. But you can. I gripped the phone tighter. We'd like you to advise us directly. Quietly. Off the official record for now. No title change on your end. No visibility within your company structure. Just the work. If Victor found out, I would be finished. He would find a way to remove me entirely, and I knew it. But I also knew what my answer had to be. Yes, I said. Good. We'll set up a separate communication channel. Victor won't be included. Our technical team will reach out directly to your email. She hung up. I sat at my desk, my hand still on the phone, staring at the wall of my office. The next morning, Victor started watching me differently. It was small things at first. Things I might have missed if I had not been paying attention. He walked past my desk more often than usual. He asked questions about my schedule that he had never asked before. Where I would be working that afternoon. Whether I had any external calls planned. He showed up to team meetings I ran and sat in the back, just observing, saying nothing. In our one-on-one that Friday, he leaned back in his chair and studied me for a long moment before speaking. You've seemed distracted lately, he said slowly. I had been more focused than ever in my entire career. Just managing the workload, I said evenly. Good. Because I need to know you're aligned. Fully aligned. We're building something important here, and I can't have anyone operating independently or creating confusion with the client. Independently. The word carried weight. Of course, I said. But that same afternoon, I had my first secret implementation call with Miss Adeyemi's technical team. We worked through model adjustments for an hour. They asked detailed questions about data inputs, weighting mechanisms, error correction protocols. I answered every single one from memory. By the end of the call, the lead analyst said something that stayed with me. This is the clarity we needed. Thank you. Clarity. The exact word Victor had tried to claim ownership of while delivering none of it himself. I hung up and updated my evidence folder with detailed notes from the call. Timestamps. Topics covered. Questions answered. Then Victor made his first real mistake. He started isolating me systematically. Subtly at first. I stopped receiving calendar invites to leadership planning sessions I had always attended. Email threads I should have been on suddenly did not include my name. In meetings, he began questioning my alignment in front of others. Amora, you seem uncertain about this direction. Are you fully on board with where we're heading? I had not expressed any uncertainty. I had simply asked a clarifying question about timeline. Then he called me into his office privately one afternoon. I want you to know I'm protecting you, he said seriously, his hands folded on his desk. From what? From exposure you're not ready to handle. Executive-level visibility comes with pressure. Real pressure. I've seen talented people burn out because they were elevated too quickly, before they developed the necessary resilience. Protection. He framed his theft as mentorship. His control as care. I nodded slowly. I appreciate that, I said, keeping my face neutral. But I had already scheduled my second off-record call with the client for the following morning. And then Victor made an even bigger mistake. He scheduled a second high-level presentation to expand his strategy. The meeting was set for the following Tuesday. Victor sent the calendar invite to the full client executive team. Larger audience this time. Higher stakes. More people to impress. He spent the weekend preparing slides. I knew because he sent me 3 separate emails asking for input on framing and thoughts on messaging. On Monday, he asked me to review the full deck. I read through it carefully. The content was surface level. Broad statements about optimization and efficiency gains. Nothing that demonstrated actual understanding of the technical engine underneath it all. Looks good, I said, handing back the printed pages. He smiled, relieved. I knew I could count on you. Tuesday morning arrived. The boardroom filled slowly. 8 people from the client side this time. Ms. Adeyemi sat at the center of the table, a notepad in front of her. Victor opened confidently, his voice strong. But this time, the client pushed harder from the start. Ms. Adeyemi asked about the specific modeling variables. How the system handled data anomalies and outliers. What the failure threshold was for prediction accuracy. Victor answered in generalities, using phrases like robust architecture and adaptive systems. She asked for specifics. Numbers. Thresholds. He contradicted something he had said 2 slides earlier. A thin line of sweat appeared at his temple. The room went very quiet. Then Ms. Adeyemi said, almost casually, "That's not what Amora explained to us in our technical review." And suddenly, every person in that room turned to look at me. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Maybe 4. It felt much longer. Ms. Adeyemi's eyes were steady on mine. The question in them was clear even though she had not spoken it yet. Then she did. "Amora, did you design this framework?" There it was. The moment. I could protect Victor. I could deflect. I could say it was collaborative work and let the ambiguity continue. Or I could protect myself. I looked directly at Ms. Adeyemi. "Yes," I said clearly. "I designed it." The room stayed quiet. Victor did not look angry. Not yet. He looked scared. "Amora was instrumental in the development process," he said quickly, trying to regain control. "As I mentioned, my team." Ms. Adeyemi raised one hand slightly. Victor stopped mid-sentence. "Amora," she said, "would you walk us through the model? The actual technical architecture." I glanced at Victor once. His jaw was tight. Then I stood up and walked to the front of the room. I moved through the framework step by step. The data inputs and how they were collected. The weighting algorithm and why I had chosen that specific approach. The prediction engine and its feedback loops. How the system learned and adjusted based on accuracy results. I spoke calmly. Clearly. Without notes. The client team leaned forward. They asked questions. I answered each one without hesitation, citing specific examples and test results. Ms. Adeyemi nodded several times. Her expression showed something I had not seen directed at me before in any professional setting. Respect. Victor tried to interrupt twice. The first time, I simply paused and waited for him to finish before continuing. The second time, the client's CEO, a man named Mr. Kwame Ose, stopped him with a single sentence. "Let her finish, please." The power in the room shifted visibly. I felt it like air pressure changing before a storm. By the time I returned to my seat, everyone in that room understood exactly who had built the work being presented. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. The client team thanked me directly. Several of them shook my hand. One asked for my card. Victor smiled tightly and said nothing at all. That night, I went home and waited. I knew what was coming. Humiliation makes people dangerous. The call from HR came at 9:15 the next morning. The HR director's name was Miss Chioma Nwosu. She was professional and careful in her tone. Amora, we need to meet. This morning if possible. Of course. What's this regarding? A brief pause. A concern was raised about unauthorized client contact. Victor had moved first. I arrived at her office 30 minutes later with my prepared folder. She had a printed document on the desk. I could see Victor's signature at the bottom before she even turned it toward me. Victor has reported that you've been communicating with the client outside of approved channels. He's concerned this undermines the team structure and creates confusion about leadership roles. I kept my expression calm. May I respond? Please. I opened my bag and pulled out the folder I had prepared the night before. Inside were printed copies of every email exchange with Miss Adeyemi. Timestamps showing she had initiated contact first. Documentation of the technical questions she had asked. My responses with full technical depth. I placed them on the desk carefully, organized by date. The client reached out to me directly with technical questions. I responded professionally. Here's the complete record. Ms. Nwosu read through the pages slowly. Her expression changed as she read. These are detailed technical exchanges, she said quietly, looking up at me. Yes. And the client initiated this communication. Every single time. I have the email headers showing incoming contact. She set the papers down and looked at me carefully. Victor claims the framework presented last week was collaborative work. Is that accurate? I had prepared for this exact question. I can provide the original development files if needed. They are time-stamped and show the complete build process from start to finish. I'm the only author listed in the document's metadata. Ms. Nwosu was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked a question that told me everything I needed to know. Would you be willing to provide those files to our review team? Yes. I need to speak with IT about pulling document history logs from our system. She thanked me for coming in. The meeting ended. I walked back to my desk, my hands steady now. 3 hours later, I saw 2 people from IT enter Victor's office. They stayed for 40 minutes. When they left, Victor's face was pale. That afternoon, Ms. Nwosu sent me a follow-up email requesting a second meeting. This time, someone from legal would be present. The pattern was becoming visible to everyone who looked. And it was no longer just about one stolen presentation. The IT logs showed everything. Version histories across multiple client accounts spanning 2 full years. Strategy documents. Presentation decks. Proposal frameworks. All of them showed the same pattern. I was the original author. Victor's edits came later, small changes to formatting, sometimes just adding his name to the cover page or author field. But the core work, the actual thinking and development, was mine across every major account. The legal representative, a sharp woman named Ms. Folake Adewale, reviewed the documentation without expression, her pen moving across her notepad. This is a clear pattern, she said finally, looking at Ms. Nwosu. Ms. Nwosu nodded. Amora, we appreciate your cooperation. We'll need to conduct a full review. In the meantime, please continue your work as normal. I left that meeting and went back to my desk. Word had already started moving through the office in that invisible way news always travels. People looked at me differently. Some with curiosity. Some avoided eye contact entirely. Victor did not come in the next day. Or the day after that. Then, on Thursday morning, something happened that moved this completely beyond HR's control. The client paused the contract renewal. The official notice came through at 10 a.m. The renewal was worth multiple millions over 3 years. It represented one of the largest active accounts the company held. The reason given was professional but absolutely clear. Leadership transparency concerns. The board called an emergency meeting within the hour. By noon, the entire executive floor was in controlled panic. People moved quickly between offices. Doors closed for urgent calls. At 2 p.m., I received a calendar invite I had never expected to see. Meeting with the CEO. Conference room A tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The message included one line: "Please come prepared to discuss the client account in detail." I went home that evening and organized every piece of documentation I had collected over the past weeks. Timestamps. Original files. Email records. Technical specs. Client communications. IT logs. Everything. I barely slept at night, running through scenarios in my mind. The next morning, I walked into that conference room and sat across from Mr. Tobias Okoro, the CEO I had only seen at company-wide events and in hallway passings. He looked at me steadily, his expression unreadable. "Ms. Okafor. Thank you for coming. I'll be direct. Is there anything about this account situation that we should know?" I opened my folder. And I told him everything. I walked him through the complete timeline. The framework I had built over 6 weeks. The presentation where Victor claimed it as his own concept. The client's direct outreach to me afterward. The technical calls I had conducted at their specific request. I showed him the documentation. The IT logs. The email chains with timestamps. I used no emotional language. Just facts. Clear. Verifiable. Organized. Mr. Okoro listened without interrupting once. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and was quiet for a moment. "The client contacted us yesterday," he said finally. "They made something very clear." He paused. "They want you leading this account. Not Victor. Not our standard team structure. You. By name." My heart was pounding, but I kept my face still. They said if we can't accommodate that specific requirement, they're prepared to walk from the renewal entirely. He looked at me carefully. "Ms. Adeyemi told me something else. She said you're the reason they signed with us in the first place. That the work you built gave them confidence in our firm's actual capabilities." I had not known that detail. "Victor has been placed on administrative leave pending the completion of the investigation," he continued. "But the client decision isn't about punishment. It's about competence. About who can actually deliver." He leaned forward. "They want you. What do you want?" The question sat between us in the quiet conference room.
What did I want? 6 months ago, I would have said I wanted recognition, credit for my work, a fair chance to prove myself. Now, sitting across from the CEO with the client contract frozen and my manager on administrative leave, I wanted something much more specific. "I want authorship protection," I said clearly, "written into my employment terms. Any work I create is formally attributed to me in client communications and internal documentation." Mr. Okoro nodded slowly. "Reasonable. I want direct client access. No approval layer between me and the accounts I manage. Also reasonable. And I want a title that accurately reflects the role I'm actually performing." He was quiet for a moment, studying my face. "The client made an offer to you directly, didn't they?" I did not answer immediately. "Ms. Adeyemi called me last night," I said carefully. "She mentioned they're expanding their internal team, that there might be a role." "What did they offer?" "Triple my current salary, executive title, direct reporting to their COO." Mr. Okoro's expression did not change, but something shifted behind his eyes. "And you're sitting here instead of accepting that offer?" "I'm here because I want to know if this company values the actual work I do." He stood up from his chair. "Give me 24 hours. The offer came back in 18 hours. Senior Director of Strategic Analytics. Salary increase of 45%. Revenue share on accounts I managed directly. Authorship clauses written explicitly into my contract. Direct client access with no management approval required. Everything I had asked for in writing. I read through the offer twice, carefully. Then I called Ms. Adeyemi and told her I was staying. They met your terms? She asked.
Yes.
All of them.
Good.
You're worth it, Amara. But listen, the contract renewal is contingent on you being the primary lead. Make sure that's clear in writing. It is. Then we'll move forward. I signed the new contract that afternoon. The announcement went out internally the next morning. My promotion. My new title. My direct leadership of the client account. Victor's name appeared in a separate communication 2 hours later. His employment had been terminated. The email was brief. Professional. No dramatic details. Just that his position had been eliminated following a performance review. I read it once. Then I closed my laptop and went to get coffee. Some people congratulated me in the break room. Others avoided looking at me entirely. I understood both reactions. But the real victory came 4 months later. The work was different after the transition. I reported directly to Mr. Okoro. I built my own team, interviewing candidates myself. I chose people based on their actual capabilities, not their ability to take credit smoothly in meetings. The client account stabilized within weeks and then grew. We expanded into 2 additional service areas. Revenue increased by 31% in the first quarter under the new structure. Ms. Adeyemi and I spoke weekly. The technical calls became strategy sessions. The relationship deepened into real partnership. Then, in early June, something happened that showed me how completely the power had shifted. A new potential client requested a pitch meeting. Major telecommunications firm. Largest deal our company had pursued in 3 years. The executive team prepared for weeks. Multiple departments involved. The meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. I arrived early and took my seat in the conference room. The client's leadership team walked in at exactly 10 a.m. Their CEO, a tall woman named Ms. Blessing Okonkwo, scanned the room, her eyes moving across faces. Then she looked directly at me. "We're here to meet Amara Okafor," she said clearly. "Not the department. Not company leadership."
Me.
Mr. Okoro handled it smoothly, without missing a beat. "Ms. Okafor leads our Strategic Analytics division. She'll be walking you through our capabilities." I stood and moved to the front of the room. The presentation I had prepared was built entirely on work I had created. Frameworks I had designed. Results I had delivered personally. No one else's name appeared anywhere in the deck. Ms. Okonkwo asked detailed questions throughout. I answered every one without hesitation. Her team took extensive notes. At the end, she looked at Mr. Okoro. "Your company's reputation preceded this meeting," she said. "But Ms. Adeyemi at Helix Corp gave us a very specific recommendation. She said if we wanted real strategic capability, we needed to work with Amara directly." Ms. Adeyemi had referred them by name. "We'd like to move forward," Ms. Okonkwo continued, "with Amara as the primary lead on our account." The deal closed 3 weeks later. Contract value, $8 million over 4 years. My name was listed as executive lead in the signed agreement. When the announcement went out internally, my phone buzzed with messages. Congratulations from colleagues. Notes from people I had worked with years ago. And one message I had not expected. From Victor. The message was short. "Congratulations on the new account. Well deserved." I stared at it for a long moment. No apology. No acknowledgement of what had happened. Just a brief professional note that pretended the past did not exist. I thought about responding. I thought about all the things I could say. Then I deleted the message without replying. He did not deserve my words. Not anymore. That evening, I sat in my apartment and thought about the timeline of everything that had happened. 8 months ago, I had sat in a boardroom and watched my work presented under someone else's name. I had been told I was not ready for executive credit. That leadership was about presence, not intelligence. Now I sat with a senior director title, direct client relationships, and a contract that protected everything I created. Victor was gone. Not dramatically. Not with public confrontation or messy scenes. He had simply been removed when his actual value became measurable against real standards. The system had not protected me because it was fair. It had protected me because I had made myself undeniable through documentation and competence. And that realization changed how I saw everything that came after. 3 months after the telecommunications deal closed, I was invited to speak at an industry conference. The topic was strategic modeling in client relationships. I had been recommended by Ms. Adeyemi. I stood on that stage and talked about the work I had built, the frameworks, the technical approach, the importance of documentation and clear authorship in collaborative environments. The audience was engaged throughout. People asked thoughtful questions. Several came up afterward to exchange contact information and discuss potential collaborations. One of them was a recruiter from a major firm. "We've been following your work," she said. "If you're ever open to conversations about leadership opportunities, I'd love to connect." I took her card. A year ago, I would have been completely invisible at an event like this. Now people were tracking my work by name. The difference was not luck. It was documentation.
Clarity.
The willingness to speak up when it mattered most. I had learned something that changed everything. Hard work alone does not protect you. Proof does. Silence does not make you valuable. It makes you easy to erase. I went home that evening and updated my evidence folder one final time. Then I closed it. I did not need it anymore. A full year after Victor's termination, I received a message that felt like the final punctuation mark on everything that had happened. Ms. Adeyemi's company was hosting a private leadership summit. Invitation only. She wanted me to attend as a guest speaker. I accepted immediately. The event was held at a hotel conference center downtown. 50 executives from major firms. Panel discussions. Networking sessions. I presented on a panel about strategic innovation. Afterward, during the reception, I was standing near the refreshment table when I saw someone I recognized across the room. Victor. He was there as a guest of one of the other companies. No speaking role. Just attendance. Our eyes met across the crowd. He looked different. Older somehow. The confidence that used to fill every room he entered was gone. He walked over slowly. "Amara," he said. "Good to see you." "Victor." An uncomfortable pause. "I heard about your promotion. The new accounts. You've done well." I said nothing. "Look," he said quietly. "I know things ended badly. I just want you to know, I never meant for it to go the way it did." I looked at him steadily. Never meant for it to go that way. As if the theft had been accidental. As if the gaslighting had been a misunderstanding. "You told me I wasn't ready for executive credit," I said calmly. "That leadership was about presence, not intelligence." He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight. "I was wrong," he said.
Yes.
"You were." Another pause. Longer this time. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry." I thought about that apology. I thought about the boardroom, the stolen slides, the months of isolation and manipulation. I thought about the evidence folder, the late-night calls with clients, the IT logs that proved everything. "Thank you for saying that," I said. Then I walked away. Not because I was angry, not because I needed to punish him further, but because there was simply nothing left to say. He had tried to make me invisible. The client had asked for me by name. That was the only ending that mattered. I spent the rest of the evening networking with people who knew my work, who referenced specific projects I had led,
Who wanted to understand my approach.
I drove home that night and thought about what I had learned. The lesson was not about revenge. It was about something quieter and more permanent. I pulled into my parking space and sat in the car for a moment before going inside. The city lights stretched out in front of me through the windshield. I thought about the person I had been a year ago, sitting in meetings where my work was presented by someone else, being told to stay quiet, to wait my turn, to trust that good work would eventually be recognized. That person had believed the system would protect her if she just worked hard enough. I knew better now. Hard work does not protect you. Documentation does. Silence does not make you valuable. It makes you underestimated. Victor had stolen my idea because he thought presence mattered more than competence. But when the client needed real answers, when the pressure was on and the work had to be defended under scrutiny, they did not ask for the person with the smooth presentation skills. They asked for the person who actually built it. They asked for me. By name. I got out of the car and walked to my apartment. Inside, I made tea and sat down at my desk. My laptop was open. A new project proposal sat in draft form, half finished. Tomorrow, I had a strategy call with 2 potential clients. Both had requested me specifically. I sipped my tea and started reviewing the documentation. This time, my name would be on every page from the very beginning. Not because someone gave me permission, because I had earned the right to put it there. And no one could take that away.